Learning target 2.5 is our objective today. It's called solving algebraic equations with addition and subtraction. Now our first equation today is x plus 12 equals 80. And the reason this is an algebraic equation is because we have a variable x, which we don't know. And it's an equation because we have an equal sign here. So we have to figure out what number plus 12 would be 80. Now to solve these equations, I'm going to expect to see at least 2 steps on each question. And here's the process we're going to follow. Number 1, we're going to isolate the variable. So in this question, our variable is x. So I'm going to highlight that so I know what I'm talking about. And when I visualize this, I see this equal sign as a split. I have the left side of my equation and the right side of my equation. And since x is on the left side of my equation, I have to get rid of that plus 12. Our second step is to undo the operation. So in order to undo adding 12, I would actually subtract on both sides by 12. And the reason I put that minus 12 on both sides is because an equation is a balance. So whatever is on the left side has to equal or balance out the right side. So that's why I have 2 negative 12s. Without them, I wouldn't balance out. Now a negative 12 and a positive 12 cancel, so I'm going to get rid of those. And I'm just going to drop the x down, because that's the only thing that's left on the left side. Keep my equal sign. And then if I type in 80 minus 12, or calculate that, I will get 68. So what I'm looking for is a negative sign on both sides, a 12 on both sides. I'm looking for the x down here, the equals down here, and your answer on the bottom. So we just solved for x. Example number 2 in our notes, x plus 10 equals 20. Now I did this because I know the answer to this. I'm working on the process or the steps. So number 1 is to find my variable so I can isolate. So x is my variable. I'm going to split my equation down the middle so I have a left and a right side. So if x is on the left, that means 10 or plus 10 has to go. So the opposite of adding 10 would be subtracting 10. I'm going to do that on both sides. A positive 10 and a negative 10 cancel each other out, so that gives me an x. And that is equal to whatever 20 minus 10 is, which is 10. I have all of my steps. Example number 3. My equation is x minus 15 equals negative 25. Again, I'm looking for my variable. My variable is x, and I need to get rid of minus 15. So the opposite of subtracting 15 would be adding 15. So I'm going to write that on both sides. Negative 15 and a positive 15 cancel each other out, which leaves me with an x. I'm going to bring down my equal sign. Now I have to be careful here. I have negatives or integers. A negative 25 plus a 15. I know that those two numbers are not on the same team, so I actually have to subtract 25 and 15, which is 10. And I have more negative 20 if the absolute value of 25 is bigger, so my answer should also be negative. So my answer is x equals negative 10. Example number 4. I'm going to split my equation down the middle. Looking for my variable. My variable is x, but this time x is on the right side. So I have to get rid of the plus 12 on the right side. The opposite of plus 12 is minus 12. I'm going to put that on both sides. The plus 12 and the minus 12 cancel, so I'm just going to bring my x straight down, bring my equals down. Again, I'm working with integers here, so I need to be careful. I have a negative 62 minus 12. I'm going to write this down here going across so I can see what it looks like here. Now I know when I subtract with integers, I would plus minus, so I'm going to do that. Now that I look at this, I have 2 numbers on the same team. They're both negative. So when numbers are on the same team, we add. That would give me a 74. And they're on the same team. They're on the negative team. So my answer is negative 74. So be careful when you're working with integers. Write your work down to the side so you can see what you're looking at. Another question. I'm looking for my variable, which is x, so I'm going to highlight that, and I see that x is on the right again, which means I have to move a negative 74. So the opposite of a negative 74 is a positive 74. So I'm going to write that on both sides. Notice I looked in front of my number to see what operation I'm thinking of or looking at. I did not look at the plus sign. I looked in front of my 74. Negative and a positive 74 cancel, so I'm going to bring the x straight down. And 24 plus 74 is 98. I'm going to use a calculator for this one just to make sure I do this correctly. So I'm going to grab that, split this in half, and my variable is an x. That means if x is on the left, I have to move 19.95. So they are adding 19.95, so the opposite would be to subtract 19.95. Subtract 19.95. Now, if I didn't have a calculator, I would make sure that my decimals are lined up. And then I'd have to write this down here because I can't. Actually, I'm good because if I write this across to see what I'm looking at here, I have negative 7 minus 19.95, but I know I plus minus my subtraction sign, so they're actually on the same team, which means I'm going to add these together. So I'm not even going to use calculator. I'm just going to add them up like this. Since they're on the same team, it's going to stay negative, and that's going to equal x. Those two cancel each other out. So x equals negative 26.95. Now, this is why we're in pre-algebra, because our problems are going to get a little more complicated. I'm still going to split my equation down the middle. I'm still going to look for my variable, which is x. But this time I have two numbers on the left side with my x instead of one. So if I would clean up my equation a little bit and combine these two numbers, a positive 5 and a positive 8, that would give me x plus 13 equals 20, which is helpful because now I'm back to what I've been practicing. So you're going to have to combine your like terms into one number and then solve from there. So it's going to take me one extra step today. My variable is still x. It's on the left. I still have to move the numbers on the left. So my number on the left is a plus 13. So the opposite would be a minus 13. I'm going to write that on both sides. These two cancel. And 20 minus 13 is 7. Another example like that, split it down the middle. Looking for my variable, it's x. X is on the left, but so is the number 3, and so is the number 6. So we need to combine like terms. So this is a 3, and this is a plus 6. So 3 plus 6 is 9. I'm going to keep everything else. It's positive 9, so I put a plus sign. So I cleaned up my equation. I simplified. Again, my variable is x. So that means I have to get rid of the plus 9. So the opposite of adding 9 would be subtracting 9. I'm going to do that on both sides. These two cancel. Bring down my x. And our negative 9 minus 9, I'm going to write off to the side so I know what I'm looking at. I always plus minus subtraction. Now I see they're on the same team. So when they're on the same team, we add. And they are on the negative team. So my answer is x equals negative 18. One more example like that. Let's put this down the middle. But this time x is on the right, which means I need to get rid of the 9 and the negative 5. So I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to combine like terms. I have 9 and a negative 5. So 9 minus 5 would be 4, so if I rewrite this, it would be negative 11 equals x plus 4. You could also write it as negative 11 equals 4 plus x. Either one's okay. I'm going to solve the one over to the left. Again, X is my variable. X is on the right, so I have to get rid of the plus 4 on the right. The opposite of a plus 4 is a minus 4. Write that on both sides so you stay balanced. These two cancel. I'll bring down my X. And I have a negative 11 minus 4, so I'm going to show this off to the side. Negative 11 minus 4, I'm going to plus minus. They're on the same team, so I'm going to add these together so I get 15. And they're on the negative team, so I'm going to put a negative sign there. Oh, last but not least, we're going to do shapes. So we did one like this in class the other day, similar. We're going to find perimeter, which is the distance around the outside of this rectangle, and rectangles have 4 sides, 2, 3, 4, and we add on perimeter. And my answer is supposed to be 72. Whoop. So I said 4 sides. So there's only 2 listed here. So I know I have a 20. I know I have an X. But I also know that this side is also 20. And I know that this side is X. So that might be one way you write your equation. Now I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to add 1's in front of my X's so I can add like terms. I know that 20 and 20 is 40. I know that 1x plus 1x is 2x. And that 2x plus 40 equals 72. And then now I have to figure out what x would be. This comes from last year. Try your best on these. Now my variable here is x. And I have 2 numbers to get rid of. I have a 2 to get rid of. And I have a 40 to get rid of. So which one should I do first? We are always undoing what's here. We've been working on PEMDAS backwards. So PEMDAS backwards would mean working this direction. So I would always do the addition and subtraction first. So I see a plus 40. So to undo that would be a minus 40. These two cancel. That gives me 2x equals 32. And then as I continue to move up PEMDAS backwards, I would multiply or divide last. So since they are timesing by 2 here, I'm going to divide by 2. These two cancel. And my answer, since I can't fit it, I'm going to write x equals 32 divided by 2 is 16. And anytime you have shapes, you need labels. So I'm going to write 16 feet.